0542 hours Norwegian Sea. Latitude 69 degrees 14 minutes north. The sun has not risen here yet. In early March, at this latitude it will not fully clear the horizon until well past 800, and the sea is running 6-foot swells under a 22-knot wind from the northwest. Gray water churned into irregular peaks under a sky the color of old pewter. Visibility is 11 nautical miles. Temperature is -4 degrees Celsius. This is not a hospitable ocean. It has never been a hospitable ocean. The sailors of the Royal Norwegian Navy call this stretch of water between the Norwegian coastline and the island of Jan Mayen the Gap, not a geographic term but a strategic one. The northern corridor through which Soviet submarines once sortied to threaten the Atlantic sea lanes during the Cold War. The same corridor that NATO navies spent 4 decades learning to watch, to seal, and to control. Old habits in this part of the world die slowly. The habits are useful because the threat they were built to counter never fully went away. USS Harry S or Truman CVN-75, Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, is operating 340 nautical miles northwest of the Norwegian coastline as the centerpiece of Carrier Strike Group 8, currently attached to NATO's Standing Naval Force Atlantic for Exercise Cold Response, a multinational exercise that has been running for 11 days and has involved naval and air assets from 14 alliance nations. Truman is 1,092 feet long and displaces 104,000 tons at full load. She is powered by 2 Westinghouse A4W nuclear reactors driving 4 shafts, and she could sustain 30-plus knots indefinitely without refueling for the life of her reactors. Her flight deck covers 4.5 acres. Her Air Wing Y4, Carrier Air Wing 1, operates 70-plus aircraft including F/A-18E/F Super Hornets, EA-18G Growlers, E-2D Advanced Hawkeyes, and SH-60F Seahawks. She is flanked by USS Normandy CG-60, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser with 122 VLS cells running the full Aegis Baseline 10 combat system. Her screen includes 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, USS Mitcher, USS Bainbridge, and USS Forrest Sherman. And beneath the surface, a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine whose position is not disclosed publicly and never will be. Moscow has been watching this exercise for 11 days. They have been watching it from orbit, Russian ELINT satellites making regular passes over the Norwegian Sea, cataloging radar emissions, communications patterns, and the track of every surface ship in the formation. They have been watching it from the air. 2142 Maritime Patrol aircraft making provocative approaches from Kola Peninsula bases, testing the response times of the NATO Combat Air Patrol, measuring the electronic emissions of the E-2D Hawkeyes. They have been watching it from below. A Yasen-class submarine, Project 885M, the most capable attack submarine Russia has produced, has been trailing the strike group at maximum passive sonar range for the past 4 days. The Americans know it is there. The USS Los Angeles class knows exactly where it is, but the Yasen is not being engaged. It is being watched, logged, and allowed to continue trailing at a distance that makes its crew feel competent. This patience is deliberate, because what nobody in the Russian chain of command fully appreciates, what their intelligence assessments have consistently failed to account for, is the degree to which the United States has spent the past decade specifically engineering its carrier strike group defense architecture to defeat the scenario that Moscow believes is its decisive asymmetric advantage. At 0542 hours and 19 seconds, the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye, orbiting at 25,000 feet on the northeast corner of the strike group's defensive perimeter, registers a threat event that changes the character of the morning entirely. The APS-145 radar, simultaneously tracking over 2,000 airborne contacts across its 350 nautical mile surveillance envelope, detects a launch signature from a bearing of 047 degrees, range 680 nautical miles. The launch profile is consistent with a high-energy ballistic arc from a maritime platform. 6 seconds later, a second launch. 8 seconds after that, a third, then a fourth. 4 separate launch events staggered by seconds from 2 different bearings in the northeastern sector. The emission signatures logged by the EA-18G Growlers on the Combat Air Patrol are already coming back with a classification that the crew of every ship in the formation has trained against and hoped never to see in an operational context. Kh-47M2 Kinzhal, the air-launched variant of the Iskander-M ballistic missile system carried externally by MiG-31K Foxhound interceptors operating from Olenia Air Base on the Kola Peninsula. Claimed maximum speed, Mach 10. Claimed range, 2,000 kilometers. Officially described by Russian President Vladimir Putin in a 2018 announcement as an ideal weapon that renders all existing air defense systems useless. Russian state media has called the Kinzhal the carrier killer. The Kremlin's military theorists have invested significant intellectual capital in the argument that hypersonic weapons represent a revolution in naval warfare so profound that the aircraft carrier, and specifically the American Carrier Strike Group, has been rendered obsolete as a power projection tool. It makes for compelling propaganda. It makes for dramatically incorrect operational predictions. The Kinzhal is real. Its speed is real. Its range within certain parameters is real. What is not real, what has been built on a foundation of selective testing, classified assessments, and the Kremlin's institutional need to project a deterrent capability it has not fully achieved, is the claim that it is uninterceptable. Hypersonic speed is a genuine defensive challenge. A weapon traveling at Mach 10 compresses the engagement timeline dramatically compared to a subsonic cruise missile. But speed alone does not make a weapon invulnerable. It makes it harder to intercept. Harder is not the same as impossible. And the United States Navy has not been sitting still since 2018 while Moscow celebrated its propaganda victory. The SM-3 Block IIA, which the Norwegian Sea Strike Group has loaded in significant numbers across the VLS cells of USS Normandy, and all 3 Arleigh Burke destroyers, was already capable of exo-atmospheric intercepts against medium-range ballistic missile targets. The Aegis Baseline 10 software upgrade, integrated fleet-wide over the past several years, incorporated specific enhancements to the fire control solution algorithms designed to address the terminal phase tracking challenges presented by maneuvering hypersonic re-entry vehicles. The cooperative engagement capability running across every ship in the formation on encrypted Link 16 data links means that the tracking data from the E-2D Hawkeye's APS-145 radar is simultaneously feeding into the fire control solutions of every Aegis system in the strike group within seconds of the first detection. The system does not need to wait. It is already computing intercept geometry before the Kinzhal missiles have completed their initial boost phase climb. There are also elements of the defensive architecture that Russian intelligence has consistently underestimated. The EA-18G Growler electronic attack aircraft currently airborne, 2 of them on a rotating CAP schedule, carry the AN/ALQ-99FV tactical jamming system and the next-generation jammer pod, which represents the most capable airborne electronic warfare system in the world. The Kinzhal, for all its speed advantages, relies on an inertial navigation system with periodic GPS/GLONASS correction updates during its flight profile. It is not a radar-seeker weapon. It navigates to a target coordinate, and it requires those navigation updates to maintain accuracy against a moving ship target. The Growler crews are already working on that problem before the missiles have reached the apex of their ballistic arc. At 05:43 hours and 04 seconds, USS Normandy's TAO authorizes the first SM-3 Block IIA engagement. The 122 VLS cells aboard the Ticonderoga-class cruiser are configured for exactly this threat on this deployment. The first SM-3 erupts from Cell 7 in a column of white fire that is visible across 25 miles of Norwegian Sea. 3 seconds later, a second launch from Cell 12. The Arleigh Burke destroyers are launching simultaneously. Mitcher from her forward VLS, Bainbridge from her aft cells, Forrest Sherman adding to the salvo from her position on the southern picket. The SM-3S are climbing hard, third stage burning, heading northeast into the dark sky above the Norwegian Sea at a closing velocity that will bring them to intercept geometry in the upper atmosphere before the Kinzhals have descended through 100,000 feet. The EA-18G Growlers have by this point established a barrage jamming environment across the GPS and GLONASS frequency bands. Whether this disrupts the Kinzhal navigation updates sufficiently to degrade terminal accuracy is uncertain. The Kinzhal's navigation architecture is classified, and the exact vulnerability window is a matter of ongoing intelligence analysis. What is known is that the jamming creates additional uncertainty in the weapon's terminal guidance solution, and additional uncertainty compounds the intercept probability calculations in the SM-3's favor. The Growlers are not certain they have degraded the missiles. They are adding to a layered defensive solution, not replacing it. Intercept 1 occurs at 0544 hours and 41 seconds. Altitude, 164,000 feet, above the Kármán line, in the technical vacuum of near space. The LEAP kill vehicle aboard the first SM-3 closes the final engagement geometry and strikes the Kinzhal re-entry vehicle at a combined closing velocity that makes the collision energy equivalent to a direct artillery hit. The debris field expands silently in the near vacuum. Track 1 disappears from the Aegis display. On the E-2D Hawkeye's radar picture, a return that was traveling at Mach 9.4 simply ceases to exist as a coherent object. Track 2, intercepted at 0544 hours and 58 seconds, 171,000 feet. Gone. Track 3, this one has maneuvered. The Kinzhal does have a terminal maneuvering capability, a course correction system that can alter the re-entry vehicle's descent path during the terminal phase, complicating the fire control solution. The maneuver is detected by the Aegis system 4.2 seconds before the SM-3's LEAP kill vehicle reaches intercept range. The kill vehicle's onboard seeker updates its approach geometry. The maneuver buys the Kinzhal exactly nothing. Intercept at 0545 hours and 22 seconds, 138,000 feet. Gone. Track 4 is the problem. Track 4 has executed a more aggressive terminal maneuver than its predecessors, a course change that has pushed it outside the primary engagement basket of the assigned SM-3 interceptor. The LEAP kill vehicle misses. It is the first miss of the engagement, and it sets off a precisely controlled cascade of backup responses that demonstrates exactly why the American Carrier Strike Group defense architecture is built in layers rather than relying on any single system. The missed intercept is immediately logged by the Cooperative Engagement Capability Network. USS Mitchell's Aegis system, which has been tracking Track 4 throughout and has a second SM-3 available with an updated firing solution, launches within 1.8 seconds of the missed detection. Simultaneously, because Track 4 has now descended to altitudes where SM-6 engagement becomes viable, USS Forrest Sherman's TAO authorizes an SM-6 salvo, 2 missiles fired in rapid succession from her forward VLS cells. The SM-6 is an active radar homing weapon with a beyond visual range air-to-air engagement capability adapted for the surface-to-air role. It carries its own seeker head and can prosecute its target autonomously once launched. It is effective against ballistic missile re-entry vehicles in the terminal phase of their descent at altitudes below approximately 80,000 feet. Track 4 at this point is at 94,000 feet and descending through Mach 7. The second SM-3 from Mitchell climbs to meet it in the upper atmosphere, while the 2 SM-6 missiles from Forrest Sherman climb on a lower, flatter trajectory to engage in the terminal phase if the SM-3 misses again. Track 4 will need to survive 2 separate engagement envelopes with 2 different weapon systems before it can reach terminal range. It will not survive both. The second SM-3 from Mitchell intercepts Track 4 at 0545 hours and 51 seconds. Altitude 87,000 feet. The LEAP kill vehicle has a clean geometry solution on the maneuvering target and closes with it at a combined velocity that leaves no margin for error in either direction. Track 4 is gone. The 2 SM-6 missiles from Forrest Sherman, their target now destroyed, are commanded to self-destruct at safe altitude over empty ocean. They detonate in brief flashes of light in the pre-dawn darkness, 23,000 feet above the Norwegian Sea. Elapsed time from first detection to final intercept, 3 minutes and 32 seconds. 4 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles launched against the most powerful naval strike group in the history of warfare. 4 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles destroyed before any of them reached 85,000 feet on their descent profile. None of them came within 430 nautical miles of USS Harry S. Truman. The carrier's flight operations, which had been placed on a brief hold during the engagement cycle, resume at 0548 hours. The first aircraft of the morning launch cycle is rolling toward the catapult. Now, the situation beneath the surface becomes interesting. The Yasen-class submarine that has been trailing the strike group for 4 days has been waiting for exactly this moment. The attack doctrine is clear, at least in the Russian naval planning documents that Western intelligence has pieced together over years of collection. A Kinzhal strike from MiG-31Ks creates the confusion and distraction, during which the Yasen can close the distance and launch its own salvo of 3 M22 Zircon anti-ship hypersonic cruise missiles from its torpedo tube-compatible vertical launch cells. It is a coordinated strike concept, the surface and the subsurface working in concert, designed to overwhelm a carrier strike group's defenses by presenting simultaneous threats from multiple vectors in multiple domains. On paper, it is a serious concept. In practice, it requires one critical assumption to hold true: that the American ASW forces are distracted by the surface threat and have lost track of the submarine. The USS Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine that has been shadowing the Yasen for 4 days has not lost track of the submarine. It has never lost track of the submarine. While every sensor aboard the surface ships was focused upward on the Kinzhal engagement overhead, the American submarine was already in a firing position. At 0546 hours and 12 seconds, while the last SM-3 intercept debris was still expanding in the upper atmosphere, the Yasen-class begins accelerating and turning to reduce the range to the carrier strike group. The Los Angeles-class detects the course and speed change immediately. The Yasen's acoustic signature at increased power output is significantly louder than its careful passive trail profile. The change in behavior is unambiguous. The Russian submarine is going weapons-free. It does not get the chance. The Los Angeles-class has had a fire control solution on the Yasen for the past 18 hours. The solution is updated continuously. The American submarine's TAO does not need to deliberate. He needs authorization, which flows through the chain of command in approximately 40 seconds. At 0547 hours and 08 seconds, the Los Angeles-class launches a Mark 48 ADCAP torpedo. Advanced capability: a wire-guided, active/passive, homing heavyweight torpedo with a 650-pound BXN-103 high-explosive warhead from her forward torpedo tube. The wire guidance allows the American crew to steer the torpedo precisely through the opening phases of its run. At 3,000 yards from the Yasen, the Mark 48's active sonar seeker acquires the target independently, and the wire is cut. The torpedo is autonomous. The Yasen-class Project 885M is the finest submarine Russia has built since the Cold War. It is quieter than its predecessors. Its sonar suite is competitive with late Cold War American designs. Its reactor gives it unlimited endurance. Its crew is professional and well-trained. None of these qualities change the fundamental physics of a Mark 48 ADCAP torpedo running at 55 knots on an active sonar solution at under 3,000 yards. The Yasen detects the incoming torpedo at 0547 hours and 39 seconds and immediately launches acoustic decoys and begins an emergency evasion maneuver, a hard turn combined with a rapid depth change and a salvo of expendable acoustic devices. The decoys are capable. The evasion maneuver is professionally executed. The Mark 48's onboard processing discriminates the actual target from the decoys within 6 seconds of the torpedo going active. The evasion adds 14 seconds to the torpedo's runtime. It does not change the outcome. The detonation occurs at 0548 hours and 22 seconds. The seismic event registers on Norwegian coastal monitoring stations as a minor anomaly. In the CIC aboard USS Normandy, the track designating the Yasen-class is marked destroyed. Total engagement time from first Kinzhal detection to submarine kill 6 minutes and 3 seconds. The morning launch cycle aboard USS Harry S. Truman continues on schedule. In the hours that follow, the full weight of what has happened will begin to settle onto the Russian military chain of command with the quiet, grinding pressure of a strategic reckoning. The Kinzhal, the weapon that Putin declared renders carrier groups obsolete, the weapon that Russian Defense Ministry briefings cited as the decisive argument against NATO naval exercises in the Norwegian Sea, has been defeated. All 4 missiles, in the upper atmosphere, by a system that has been continuously evolving for 4 decades and that Moscow's intelligence services have consistently underestimated because the classified details of its true capabilities do not leak into the open-source domain. The Yasen-class submarine, Russia's most expensive and most capable undersea asset, representing years of construction time and billions of rubles, has been destroyed before it fired a single weapon, by an American submarine that the Russian crew knew was in the area and still could not evade. Russia will not immediately acknowledge any of this. The official position of the Ministry of Defense will be that the exercise involved no Russian military assets and that any claims to the contrary are Western propaganda. The MiG-31K crews that launched the Kinzhals will return to Olenia Air Base and debrief in classified facilities. The loss of the Yasen will be reported internally, eventually, through channels that will take weeks to reach the level of decision-makers who need to understand what it means. The public messaging will emphasize the hypersonic program, the deterrent capability, the strength of the Russian armed forces. There will be no press conference. There will be no acknowledgement. There will also be no second attempt, because whatever else the Russian military planning community believes about the Kinzhal and the Yasen, and the theoretical vulnerability of carrier strike groups to coordinated hypersonic and submarine attack, they now have operational data that answers the question they have been asking since 2018. The answer is not the one they were hoping for. The SM-3 Block IIA is real. The cooperative engagement capability is real. The Aegis Baseline 10 software is real. The Los Angeles-class submarine trailing their best boat without being detected is real. The entire layered architecture that transformed a 6-minute hypersonic and submarine attack into 4 debris fields in the upper atmosphere and 1 destroyed Yasen on the bottom of the Norwegian Sea. All of it is real, and all of it worked exactly as designed. Aboard USS Harry S. Truman, the 0600 hours launch cycle sends 6 FA-18Es airborne in rapid succession, their afterburners painting brief orange torches across the gray Norwegian dawn. The carrier's nuclear reactors are generating exactly as much power as they were at 0541 hours. The crew is eating breakfast. The flight deck crew is repositioning aircraft for the next cycle. The Norwegian Sea is cold and dark, and absolutely completely under the control of the United States Navy and its NATO partners, exactly as it has been since the alliance was formed, and exactly as it will continue to be for as long as anyone in Moscow chooses to test that proposition. Russia's greatest weapons, the ones Putin called game changers, the ones that were supposed to end the era of carrier dominance and restore Russian strategic parity, collided with 40 years of American engineering, training, and operational refinement. The result was 6 minutes of one-sided engagement followed by a flight deck that never stopped launching aircraft. The Norwegian Sea is quiet again. The carrier strike group continues its mission. Bye for now.